Yeah.
We're on a journey together to unearth what really drives you, what matters most, so you can drive further, faster, and enjoy the ride. This is What Drives You, and I'm your host, Kevin Miller. Welcome to What Drives You, the show for driven people who want to drive further, faster, and enjoy the ride. I'm Kevin Miller, and I'm so honored to drive with you today. In this episode, I'm back with authentic leadership expert Kristen Hadeed to talk about what drives her as she influences other leaders really around the world. Kristen's a prolific speaker and personality that people in key leadership roles are turning to in droves for advice on how to lead by connecting with your people, whether they're your kids or your employees or coworkers. Kristen's book is Permission to Screw Up: How I Learned to Lead by Doing Almost Everything Wrong. And we really unpacked that book and the concepts and her story in part one. We discuss in this one, part two, her newfound desire to pursue her own spirituality. We talked about how she works to maintain relationships while traveling and that she really enjoys going deep with fewer people than having a lot of friends in her life. And I turned a question on her that she asked. She said she likes to ask this: what's something I would never know about you if we didn't have this conversation? So I turned that on her, and then she in turn turned it on me. It's interesting what we both shared on that. We cover Kristen's practices of walking and journaling, specifically what she does, her structures around that, and even why she gets consistent therapy, what that's about. Kristen speaks to her journey away from having to feel like she has to make everything bigger and bigger and stepping back to pursue a quality life, making space for new things. And her desire just, again, for relationships and fun and the thing that she really values. So it's really insightful. And at the end, we had fun. I encouraged her to pursue her idea of maybe gardening, even if she does it poorly. A gift that she shared with us, shared it in the first show. She has a renowned program called the Human Leadership Program. A ticket there costs $299, but if you use the special link in the show notes, you can get in for free. She just surprised us with this. I didn't know about it prior, but you can literally get in the program for free. I had looked at it and saw that it was $299, but here it's free. Well, I hope you enjoy and benefit from this conversation, man, as much as I have. Kristen, it's fun doing this series with someone who I know is very driven, which everybody is on the show, but very values-based. And it was great. We ended the last show talking about just connection with people and your drive to do that. So I'm eager to hear kind of the behind the scenes on you in this one. First category is spiritual. What drives you from a spiritual standpoint, working at? I know you from the book and from us talking that you're devoted to people and something greater than self, which is how I define the core spirituality. But tell me what falls in there what drives your spirituality?
Yeah, I would say this is one I'm still trying to figure out for myself. I definitely believe in something bigger. I definitely live my life from a place of wanting to serve and that it's all about people and all, bigger than me. And actually in March a year ago now, I went on a retreat, a solo retreat by myself. It was like 9 days in Mexico. And one of the things that came out of that retreat for me is realizing that I want to be more connected on a spiritual level and just really thinking about what that looks like in my life. And growing up, I went to church and I was very involved in the church that we were a part of. And then as I grew, I kind of just became disconnected from that. And today, what I love doing is I go for walks, like really, really long walks, like 2 to 3 hour walks. And on this retreat, I was talking to the retreat facilitator about realizing that I want to be more spiritually connected. And she helped me see that maybe my walks are my version of going to church. And I realized, I think that's what it is. Because when I go on these walks, I think, I reflect. So sometimes I talk out loud. I listen to music. And so, yeah, I'm on a journey to figure this one out for myself still.
That's interesting. I think it's Colin O'Brady. He's a 10-time.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You know Colin? Okay. We know.
I know his work. I know his story. Yeah.
Okay. The last time we had him on was his book, The 12-Hour Walk. Which I said I was going to do, and I didn't do it. Now I've done some things. My gosh, I did a 13-hour. They called it a Sufferfest. It was an event, but it wasn't meditative. We were killing ourselves. Yeah. But to go out, I do a lot of 1 hour ones in the same way. And when you do those, let's see, you're in Houston. So where are you doing your walks?
Oh my goodness. So I have different neighborhoods that I'll walk in, and I'm not kidding you. Like, I can go for a walk and then look down and it's been 3 hours. I'm like, how has it been 3 hours? And I feel like I could still keep going.
Okay, put it now. So let's talk about it my gosh, the term meditation comes up 1,000 times, and there's so many different, I believe, I attest to so many different types of meditation styles. In that, would you put that in that category? And, or, because what do you do with your mindset? Because you can spend 3 hours stressing about work or fretting about this, or even just, I can be prone to just coming up with ideas, and I like bringing my iPhone out and making notes and stuff. And that has value too. But so take me on your journey.
Yeah. So when you brought up meditation, I do think this is my form of meditation.
Yeah.
I did go to a meditation school to learn how to meditate. I tried to learn transcendental meditation, and I practiced it for a little bit. And, the whole idea with that is it's 2 times a day for at least 20 minutes. And I really enjoyed doing that, but I had trouble making it stick. And it took me a while to realize, my walks are me meditating. Cause what I do and what I love about transcendental meditation is you just allow your mind to go wherever it goes. You don't try to control it. You don't try to, force the direction. And when I walk, it's really just, my mind just goes. Sometimes it's like, I see this flower and I think, that's such a beautiful flower. And I stop and I look at the flower, and then the flower reminds you of something else. And it's just like interesting how your mind can just go to all these places. Sometimes when I walk, I get ideas and I take out my notes and I'll, write things down. Sometimes I just listen to music and I just am like so present with the music. Sometimes I have nothing on in the background and I'm just looking at, the different things I'm seeing and being really present with them. And yeah, I don't know. I guess it's like time to connect with myself, but also I feel like I connect with something bigger than me.
Okay, well, take me to that, because you just said that you went on this time and you came out realizing that you had we'll call it a drive to pursue your spirituality more. What was the feeling? What's underneath that? What came about that brought that to mind?
I think it's when I say I want to be more, I want to be more connected beyond myself. And I also think in my work, what I do is a lot of energy that I pour into people and teams, and feeling like I need something that is more refilling my own cup in that way. And I think that me walking and being more connected to the world around me, but in a way that is still like, it feels very sacred. Because it's not like there's a lot of noise, I don't know. I feel like it's taking a walk through that lens has helped me to feel more connected to the world. Yeah. Even though it's just me on the walk.
Can I ask, so growing up in church, which so many people did, I did as well. And you said you kind of disconnected from that. Was there a point of rejection of it, or kind of deconstruction, or just saying, I don't know where it fits, and walking away from that? How did that work out for you?
Yeah, I think I just didn't find in my college years, I didn't find a community where I felt like, this is it. This is where I belong in terms of a church. I think too, today I travel so much. I am always on the road. And so it's been really challenging for me to find routines and things that can kind of go along with me. I have a bonus daughter in another state. So every other weekend I'm in a different place, even just looking at that. And then you factor in my work, and I travel all the time with my work. So yeah, I've tried to think about like, what are the practices that I can bring with me no matter where I am? And walking has consistently been one of those things that when I land in a new city, one of my favorite things to do is just go for a long walk. And it's kind of how I pour into myself.
I do that just to orient myself. I feel like disconnected. So I'll go to, I don't care if it's in the middle of Vegas. It's one of my, no, I don't enjoy, downtown where you end up for an event, but to just get out and just kind of orient myself. I love to get out and feel some grounding to where I'm at as well. Well, in that, so let's take that. Hard to, have some of the spiritual practices to some degree when you're traveling as much. The next category is relationships. I would imagine that comes into your sphere as well. How are you? Well, first off, what drives your relationships? What are you looking for, whether they are with your, immediate family or friends or, just people that Simon Sinek and your friends, people who in your sphere, what drives you? And then 2, how do you practice those, especially when you're traveling so much?
Yeah. I've definitely had a lot of growth in this category. I think there was a time where my friends and my family would tell you I was so focused on work, never really present, would be the person that would go on the vacation, but I'm in my hotel room emailing the whole time and barely really there. And today I have the opposite. When I'm with my family, I want to be all in. It doesn't mean that I don't work at times, but I set limits, I set boundaries. And I think the biggest difference is that I am proactive with my schedule and blocking that time for my family. So like this year, I already have 4 weeks blocked for a trip that I'm taking with my husband and my bonus daughter, a trip that I'm taking with my parents and my sister. And then I have other times throughout the year blocked. And those are non-negotiable for me. Like I'm not scheduling over them. Whereas my mindset in the past was I'm going to schedule all my work things and then try to figure out my family stuff, around it. So on Monday, I know we're recording this. It probably isn't airing, this week, but when in a week, a little less than a week, I am doing something called a friend tour and it's my birthday. And I was thinking like, what would be the most like meaningful thing to do? And I am going to visit 11 friends over the course of a week. And it's a week that I blocked out a long time ago. And it's, this is the stuff I'm realizing that matters more than anything. It's our relationships. And I think I've made a shift to, it's not about the number of relationships that we have. It's not about having, a ton of friends. It's like, I have a close, small knit circle and I invest heavily in those relationships. So for me, it's more about, it's the quality of the relationship versus the quantity.
Well, so that's the drive right there. So if you're looking at it, you want that not to, there's nobody that's going to go out there and go, yeah, you know what? I'm driven by shallow relationships.
Yeah.
But there is a place, I talk about that in the book, that what kind of, what are you driven? Do you enjoy having lots of people, lots of acquaintances? I know that lots of people, they love to be able to, they can go up to everybody in town and shake their hand. That's not me. That's awesome. Sometimes I feel like, I should be that person. I'm just not. I'm going to have a few. So we're back to authenticity. So for you, you're a fewer, deeper person.
Yeah. Yeah. And my husband and I love to host people. So that's another thing I'm learning about myself is I would so much rather invite the people I care about in my home. Like with my parents, they come and they visit us all the time. With my friends, like inviting them to our home to have dinner in our home instead of maybe going out and having a dinner. I think there's just something even more meaningful to me about just hosting people in our home that means a lot.
Connecting that with spirituality, you can go through gifts, and there's some of the gifting lists that include the gift of hospitality.
Yeah.
Would you say that fits you?
Yeah. Totally.
Well, and to some degree, come back to your story, and that feels like that's a lot of the story of you. We again meant to mention him again, just because I keep thinking of Imani Moran with Chipotle as the CEO there, that you guys both seem to gravitate towards that connectedness with people and being, hospitable and hosting people. And you did that, and it did to your businesses. It did great. And obviously to your heart as well. That is so much of who you are. To speak to that again, for somebody who may say, gosh, I'm just not that type of person so much. Would you say, well, get that person in then that's who you hire. You need to hire somebody who can do that. That component needs to be there. Is that fair?
I think you have to be authentic and genuine, and And that's the way that you build real relationships. And I've always thought of myself as being an extrovert because I'm a speaker. I'm on stages. I'm, leading a team. But the more I'm growing in my life, I'm realizing that I think I'm pretty in the middle. I am introverted in some ways. And sometimes the thought of going out and like being with people is the last thing on earth that I want to do. So I think there's another element for me. It's the relationship I have with myself and making sure that first and foremost, I'm in a good place with me to then be able to give and pour into other relationships outside of me. So I would say like own, who you are. And maybe you are someone who likes to host people. Maybe you're not. Maybe you like to have a lot of friends. Maybe you just want to have that one friend, like whatever it is, be authentic and genuine.
Okay. Let me take that to your employees. People today though, in that, and you're looking and saying, okay, I see the value in connecting with them, and how that helps the business and helps everything and blah, blah. Okay. Not everybody's just born to be a natural connector, one. And two, you're talking about people from all walks of life. So yours were a lot of students, so their age range may have been primarily similar for the most part, but you've got different propensities, personality types, genders, yada, yada on that. Even if you're a good connector, you're not going to automatically connect well with every person. Did you really have to go to school in some senses or learn where there's some resources you pursued or just your own trial and error to figure out, oh my gosh, some of these people I easily connect with, this demographic, I had to learn how to come at it a different way than your nature. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think what connection really is, it's about being curious. Mm-hmm. And I would say that's what you can bring to every interaction, right? Curiosity. And one of my favorite things to ask people is like, tell me your story. What's something I would never know about you if we weren't having this conversation? And just the things that you can learn. And especially the people who are different from you, you start to learn just kind of why that is. And you have more empathy and understanding and compassion because of that. And I think if you can be the person who's always curious, you're going to naturally build relationships and connection. I even think about sitting next to someone on a plane. I am the person that's like, so tell me your story. Like you don't want to sit next to. But the number of people that I have met on a plane that then like there's a woman that I met on a random flight and she lives in Houston and we like go to dinner today, all because of that one conversation. So I don't know. I think it's just about being curious.
Kristen, what's something I would never know about you?
Oh goodness. If we never had this conversation,
if we never had, I got to remember that. I'm going to ask you. Yeah. So go. If we never
know about me. Well, I have a dream. I feel like I have strengths to do something in film. I've always felt this about myself, but I've never known how to tap into it. And I don't know if it's producing a film or I've always been attracted to like documentaries and revealing the truth about something or bringing people together in some way, or if it's actually being on film. As a kid, I did a lot of theater and a lot of acting and I loved it. I did dance, but I feel like I didn't really carry that through as I got older. And so I feel like I have something untapped there and I want to figure that out in my life.
Okay, that's interesting. And it makes me think of another question that I'll store for an interesting one to say, I don't know how to phrase it. I have to think about it, but that's interesting to say, what's a kind of an outside dream that you have, or like if you could remake your life or clone your, whatever, what's an interest that you always somewhat thought about? I don't want to frame it so hard like it's a dream you're not doing. Because as you were saying that, I was thinking of some things and thinking, I don't feel lacking for not going after it, but I always wondered about, it would have been really fun. Yeah. I'll have to think about that as well.
What's your thing? Like, what's the one thing that you've always thought about what's your version of that?
No, I know, because I thought about it while you were saying that with film, and it would be in music production. And I'm such a music connoisseur, and I used to live in Nashville and met a lot of people and gotten to know a lot of people in the music industry and professional artists and whatnot. And I've been told I've got a good ear for music and a good ear for like, oh, that works and that doesn't. And I'm not I'm not a musician. I couldn't tell you details, but just oh, that's a good hook. Or like, oh, that run doesn't work. And like watching not American, what is it now? America's Got Talent.
Yeah.
And I just have always enjoyed that. And I think it goes along with, I love to have, like you're on here because you got a good message and, I want more people to hear this message. Yeah. And so it's the same thing. Like, that music, my kids and I, listen to a lot of music on Spotify and these playlists. And we end up with these people that generally have really small followings. They're not known yet. Mm-hmm. And we find this great joy. And we've played about having a podcast of musicians you've not heard of yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. So cool.
Yeah. Well, so you and film, me and music. There you go. If anybody's listening and wants to give us a shot, feel free.
Let's give us our big break.
Yeah. All right. Health and wellness. Tell me what's driving you in your own pursuit of your health and wellness.
To me, this is about your emotional health, your mental health, physical health. It's like, I want to have energy. I want to have vitality. I want to prioritize. To me, this is like one of my biggest drivers, if not my biggest, because if I don't have this, then what do I have in any other area? So I've been on a journey, I would say, over the last several years. And for me, I've recognized I need to move my body every single day, whether that is by going for a walk or doing something more like in the gym. There's got to be some kind of movement every day. Currently, I'm into Legree. Have you heard of Legree?
No, and I don't. Health and wellness is my area, man.
So it's okay. I used to call it Pilates, but it's not Pilates, but you use a machine and a reformer machine. And I started it in January. So I'm like a month and a half-ish, almost 2 months into my journey. What I love about it is that it's about moving slow. And the only way that you get recognized in class is by a slow pace. And so for the world being so fast paced and everything's so fast, this is like the one space where it's celebrated to go as slow as you possibly can.
Yeah, it sounds like the opposite of a HIIT workout or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it takes a lot of, I sweat so much, like so much more than I do in other things that are more fast paced. And every time I walk out, I'm like shaking everywhere. I'm like, how did that just happen? I don't even know why I'm shaking everywhere. But it's just, I love the challenge of moving slow. I also love running. And I don't run as much as I used to, but I used to be 5 or 6 miles every time I would run kind of person. Now I'm like 2 or 3. But definitely movement is huge. I also, for my emotional and mental health, I start every morning by journaling. That's a new habit of mine. I also have a therapist that I meet with several times a month. And I think it's just so important to have that space to be able to share what's on your mind and to have someone who's objective to be able to, just share that with. And yeah, I read. I think this all goes into health and wellness. And of course, food, fueling my body with things that make me feel alive. And I've learned a lot about what foods don't do well for me. I've learned I can't have gluten. It's just makes me feel awful. And just learning that it's an act of self-love to not put, to decide to not put things in my body that don't make me feel good.
Yeah.
Sleep. That's my current thing I'm working on. I have the Oura ring. I don't know if you.
Yeah.
And I have crowns for the last week for my sleep. And I'm like, okay, I need to keep this going, but just going to bed early, getting up at a consistent time. All of this is hard with traveling. And again, it's like finding the routines that work for me and bringing them with me everywhere I go.
Is the Oura Ring the first wearable device you've played with?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've had this for over 2 years. I'm obsessed with it.
I was going to ask, so you really do follow it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I make decisions on it. Like today, I woke up and I didn't have a crown on my sleep score. And I was like, well, I'm going to go back to sleep and get another little bit of sleep whereas before I might've said, I'm going to get up and start working on stuff. And, I've really reframed, like, first I need to take care of me. And then I will go out and do the things I need to do to help other people.
Okay, I'm gonna dig into some of the things you mentioned. A therapist, you said that in the first time too,
Yeah.
and it sounds like this is somebody you go to just for ongoing maintenance. It wasn't a crisis thing necessarily. So, do you go in with a focal point of, yeah, I'm working on this weakness, or is it more just kind of a checkup on how things are going to help you audit where you actually are?
Yeah. So for my therapist, we do walk and talks. So I call her on the phone and I go for a walk, combining two things I love. And sometimes I have a thing I want to talk about. Like maybe there's something that bothered me or was frustrating me. And other times I have no agenda and it's just, we start talking and then naturally there's a subject that comes up that makes sense to talk about. So yeah, I think it's a maintenance thing. I think about it like, like, where is the space that we all have to just share what's on our mind and our heart? And I think what was happening for me in my marriage is my poor husband, he was becoming my, hey, let me tell you everything. And yes, we do share what's going on in our life. And I have found it's so much more helpful for me to have that space to process things. And then, from there decide like, what are the things I want to talk about, in my marriage and my friendships so yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go down that road because it actually brings up something that I had a note on and just didn't get to in the first show, where you talked about realizing as an entrepreneur during your journey how, my term, I don't know if you used it, but how isolated that you could become, how it could be lonely. You're doing your thing. Everybody, is doing the work below you, but you kind of end up lonely at, I don't know if it's at the top, but as an entrepreneur there. And so this is obviously, there's other things you can do, but is that one of the drives to therapy?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah. And, I think it's in order to feel like we can support others, we need to have support for ourselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think this is also connected to, it's just the relationship I have with myself. That to me, that's therapy is what it helps me to keep that relationship with myself strong.
Okay. Another issue you brought up, your spouse, your husband, that we had Laura Tremaine on the show. Her book is called, Life Counsel, I think. And it was about the need or, the value of having more people. So I was going to throw that at you because of the propensity that I see of us to look at our spouse. And then they would try to make them the end all for everything that we need. And you're I'll pick on you to say, oh my gosh, can you relate to me as a woman and, going through my menstrual cycle, whatever. And he'd go, no, he's not there for that. But that we tend to do that. We look to our spouse. So give me it sounds like you got some experience there.
Yeah. So what I realized is because I didn't have this outlet for myself, everything that was going on throughout the day, I would just kind of like dump everything. And it was overwhelming, And I think the mix of journaling and having a therapist has helped me to have different outlets to process things. Okay. Journaling has been huge because it helps me become more connected to myself and understand what are the, real things that are weighing on me. Therapy is a place to process things. Yeah. And with my husband, what I found is what's really effective is when I share things with him to let him know what I need from him. So, hey, I just want to vent about these things. I don't need advice or a solution, or, hey, this is something that's challenging me and I would love advice on what you think I should do. And just that, because I think for him, he's like, all this stuff is coming and he has no idea if he's supposed to solve it, listen, and so helping him know how I need support has been really huge for us.
Okay. Can I ask this then? Have you found some things in your relationship with him that you've realized, gosh, here's a thing that I often want to discuss or talk about, and he's not the right person for it. That needs to come from someone else. And as an example, I learned in my own drive that I tend I want to talk about shooting for the stars, man. Oh, we're going to do this and or this is what I'm thinking and we could do this and it's huge or whatever. And early on, my wife would hear that and she would think, okay, then that's the goal, right? And then however much time goes and we didn't get close to that. And I'm just jazzed that we got this far. And that's cool with me. She's going, I'm devastated. We didn't get here. I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I need to moderate that a little bit. And I may take that over to my fellow business owners who kind of think like I do. And I'll share that with them instead of So with that in mind, have you found some things like, okay, I'm not going to go to him for that. I'm going to go to X.
100%. So just to give you an idea of how different we are, my husband's a brain surgeon. So he's like, so like, analytical and, like details, science. And here I am like feelings, we're going to build a company where everyone just loves each other. And like, so it's been funny to, come together. And I have found that for work related things, typically when it comes to the business, I talk to my team about those things. I have a coach where I talk about those things. It's not that he and I don't talk about work. But I think we do tend to keep our work kind of out of our conversations. Yeah. And I think it works really well for us.
Last question here on journaling.
Yeah.
It's something that I value, and I've gone through different seasons and cycles. I hear, so many of the guests on here do it, but just like meditation, it's often in different ways. So I just wanted to share that. When you're doing it, do you, one, have any specific structure? Mm-hmm. Do you try to give focus to certain things like thoughts? Like I'm really good at putting my thoughts down. I have to switch gears and be intentional to put my feelings down. So I have to work to do that. Any framework that you work in with your journaling?
Yeah. So I don't have, like, my structure is 1 to 3 pages every morning. Mm-hmm. And I just write whatever comes out. And sometimes it's Thursday. I don't know what to write about. And that's what I'm actually writing in my journal. And what you said really resonates. I am trying to focus more on the feelings that I'm having, because I think journaling is a window into what you're feeling. I think it's really fun to go back and to read journal entries from months. I keep all my journals so that I can kind of read back and reflect on where I was at that time. And my therapist gave me some really good advice that whenever you're having a day where you're feeling frustrated or you're feeling angry, to actually write in your journal with your non-dominant hand, because it makes it even more of a struggle and helps you to even more feel your feelings. And it's so hard. I'm right-handed. So whenever I have a day where I'm just like in a grumpy mood or I'm frustrated or angry, I write with my left hand, and it makes me so much more grumpy and angry. But it also helps me move through those feelings a lot faster to get to the other side.
I've never heard that. Okay. I can try that. Yeah, it's interesting.
It won't be fun, but try it.
Yeah. With the feelings, I literally will sometimes be sitting there thinking, and I'll pull out Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart and start going through, because I can't freaking figure out what it is. Okay.
Pinpointing emotion. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Well, the next category is actually mind and mental health, but you actually went through a good bit of that. That is the journey and that journaling, that is the reading. So let me just throw this at you, because it's an interesting aspect of it. That where do you need to self-advocate to keep yourself in the mental state that you want? Or another way of looking at it, where are you most at risk? Mm-hmm. What can get in the way?
I think where I'm most at risk is protecting time for myself. I want to help everybody. I want to say yes to everything. And it's hard when there's someone that you care about who wants to talk and there's something challenging them. And sometimes what happens is I help everyone else, and then I'm not saving anything for myself. Yeah. And then I get to a place of complete burnout and, total overwhelm. And I'm the one that got myself into that. And especially as a servant leader, it's not, I don't, when I think about a servant leader, it's not the person that's like, no, I can't help you, So I've had to really learn about boundaries and really learn that a boundary is the biggest act of love. It's like allowing me to be at my best, and therefore allowing me to serve this person best. So I'll give you a great example. Maybe I am working all day and I've been doing speeches and events, and like I'm tapped out. I need to replenish. But then I get a text from a good friend that's like, hey, can you talk? I'm really struggling with something and I'd love, to chat. And it's like in that moment, I want to so be there for my friend. At the same time, I'm totally spent. Yeah. And I know that by showing up for my friend in that moment, I'm actually going to hurt myself, and I'm not going to be great for my friend either. So learning to say, hey, I really care about you. It's not a good night for me because I'm really tired. Can we talk this weekend? Like I want to give you my best. And I think it's a little bit about being assertive too for our own needs. And realizing that when we're assertive, it's actually an act of respect for the other person, because it's like you know that they can handle it. They can handle you saying that you can't, or that you need to do something for you. Also, I think sometimes I overcommit, and then I've got to go back and say, actually, I know I said I would go to that, but I really can't. And I've just learned to do it. Like, any decision can be undone. You know, if it's going to help you be at your best,
Yeah,
I think you got to do it for you.
We've talked enough that I get the feeling we have some similarities in this arena. I mean, boundaries is one of the hardest things for me to do in that aspect of people pleasing. I'm very non-confrontational, and there's a reason why I've had Nedra Glover Twab on the show twice. The boundaries thing is and Terry Cole as well on boundaries is it's just real. It's just this. It's the most unnatural thing for me ever. You mentioned your childhood, and I wasn't breaking up fights, but I didn't like conflict. And so the boundaries is such a, yeah, well, I feel you on that. On the work, career, business. And I somewhat started our first show asking you what drives you there. But when you look at, now you had a business, it was successful. You sold that. You're now doing what you're doing. You've got a book. You've got continued, as you talk about, you're on the road a lot, or constantly. There's a lot of, well, I was to say demand. We'll call it opportunity. Great. And so when you look at it and go, okay, right here, right now, what is driving you most in even like the choices of what you're going to say yes to?
Yeah. My team is a huge driver for me. I have a very small team, 3 people plus me, and been working with them for so long. One's almost 13 years, 12 years, and 7 years. Wow. And so, when I think about my responsibility as a leader and just ensuring that I'm creating a good environment for them and also allowing them to grow and a sustainable organization so that they have security, that's a huge driver for me. Yeah. Our overall purpose of igniting human leadership and really redefining what leadership looks like, and that it is being authentic and being human first, and all the things we talked about in our first recording. That's a huge driver for me. I think those have been drivers for me. What's changed recently is I'm like, wait, what's fun? Like, I want to make sure I'm having fun, and not every single thing is fun. Not every single thing is a heck yes inside. So why am I saying yes to it? And so I have a coach who asked me this overarching question: what would be fun with a capital F? And that is kind of the way I'm thinking about my work this year. And there are certain things that I have been disconnected from, like writing. I love writing. And I keep saying I'm going to write another book, and I just haven't been doing it. And every time I sit down to write, I'm like, this is so fun. I love this. Like, why am I not doing this more in my days? And so just really thinking about what's fun, what's meaningful. And I also think for the first time in probably forever, I'm thinking more about who am I outside of my work? Like, my work has been so much of my identity. And now it's like, okay, who's Kristen beyond being a business owner, an entrepreneur? And it's kind of scary because I'm like, I don't really have any hobbies.
Okay, that question's coming up certainly here. And it's interesting. This came up. He came up. I haven't had him on the show in a long time, but Donald Miller. I don't know if you know. Okay. I know why it came up, because I had a friend who went to, I didn't even know they went to Onsite. I don't know if you're familiar. It's a retreat center in Nashville, run by Miles Adcox, who we've had on the show as well. Okay. Donald, in one of his books, I don't think it was on a show. I think it's in one of his books. He talks about going to this retreat center. And for the first, I want to say 3 days, they couldn't say what they did. So you could not say, hey, I'm Donald Miller. What do you do? And he said it was excruciating, because that was his, and I'm not putting that on you, but he said that was,
I would be the same way.
Okay. Well, it is. How do you categorize somebody? And they couldn't tell him, and just how. And I look at that, and we did a show recently with, I think it was the one with William Ury, and we talked about that even from a personal identity standpoint, and even how we look, that if we imagine going into a social setting and, I don't know, everybody wore a sheet over them. You could not see. You could not see, and even go further to say that masked their voice, and everybody's voice was this robotic voice. And so, who are you? Tell me about you. And you can't do work. They don't know if you're.
You know how to answer that.
I know. I don't think anybody could. I think we would all be stumped, but it showcases how much of an external. No, it was Hitendra Wadhwa in his book Inner Mastery. That was it. Looking at the inner self and how we're so much of an external culture. So that's interesting that you say that, because I want to play with that. Maybe we'll do a round table on that. I want to tell you, if you come in without any of your accoutrements of how you look, what you do, what's left.
Yeah, I know. And I think, kind of connecting to our last conversation, my definition of success has changed. Like, it's not about having the biggest company and the biggest team and it's really about having a calm company and growing in a way that feels calm and fun, and to not have work and life be in conflict, like to feel like my work and my life, everything else outside of my work can just be in flow together. And it's just such a different way for me to think, because that's not how I used to be. And even just thinking before I say yes to something, like if I'm saying yes to this, what am I saying no to?
Yes. That's not been my strong suit either. Yeah. Counting the costs. You just go after it and figure it out afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that same framework, the next category is money, finances, wealth. So if you look at your viewpoint of, success in the workplace differing, I would guess that money and finances has to go along with that. Tell me about that some.
Yeah. I think that for me, what drives me with earning money is freedom. I think the more resources that you have, the more you have the freedom to choose where you spend your time and to give generously and to, do things on your terms. And I think that's actually part of why I also became an entrepreneur, because freedom is such a huge guiding thing in my life. Like even if I'm working in a project where I feel I don't have freedom, I feel very stifled and suffocated. So freedom is huge for me. I think too, money is energy. And when we are aligned in what we're supposed to be doing, I think that the money comes. I know that sounds so cliche, but I think that it really, like, if we can focus on what we love and what we're good at and like serving and really be in alignment with that, I have found that the money always figures itself out. Yeah. I don't know if you've felt that in your journey.
It's interesting you talk about money as energy. One of my favorite people, and he actually endorsed my book, is Ken Honda and his book, Happy Money, and the emotions around that. And I heard somebody testify to him yesterday, and I had never thought about that as money is energy, and how important my perspective, my energy about it is into how that pans out. So, yeah.
And I have a complicated history with money, because I definitely had some limiting beliefs around money that I really had to work through, and it affected my company. I definitely operated from a scarcity mindset of money is going to run out, and we have to take every opportunity we possibly can in case this is the last opportunity that we have. And it comes from my childhood. My mom grew up in a very, her family struggled a lot financially, and they didn't have resources. So she was always afraid that there wouldn't be enough money. And that was something that was a theme in our home, and even though that wasn't the reality that we had growing up, I definitely remember the fear that my mom had a lot around money. So I think that kind of informed my mindset around it. And I definitely made decisions that weren't great. They were coming from that place of scarcity. There was a time in our company where we had a lot of debt because of those decisions. We had to work through that together. And I think in confronting that relationship that I had, that negative, limiting relationship, I was able to just totally reframe that. So I think it's one of the most powerful things you can do is ask yourself, what is your relationship with money?
I agree. And it's been interesting, again, with me having older kids, money was never a focal point. It was just to make enough to do your interest, your art, your sport, your whatever. And so I'm just a massive cheapskate in that, and I just am. And to see that come to them, whether there's money or not, is is daunting, somewhat convicting. All right. Next one here. And it's somewhat overlap, but I still feel like it gives a different flavor to the question of what is driving you as you look towards your achievements, the achievements that looking at what you're going forward, which is interesting because you just somewhat said, is driving you is, and I don't know if this fits it, but is fun. Is it something fun? But if you look at the things that you want to look back on and say, I want to have done this, what is driving you towards your achievements?
The first thing that popped into my mind when you asked that.
Yep.
Last week, I learned that my bonus daughter had a band concert at school. She lives in a different state than I live in. And my husband and I go to be with her every other week. So her band concert just happened to fall on a week that we didn't have her. And she was super bummed that, I wouldn't be there. We were on FaceTime and I hung up and I was like, wait, what if I could go there and actually show up? And so I had a full day of meetings. I canceled them or rescheduled them and booked a flight and showed up at her band concert. She, completely was not expecting it. And to me, that is what life is about. It's showing up for the people that you love. It's making memories. It's, I think about my proudest achievements in my work are the people who have grown as a result of our culture and our company, like the kind of parents that they are today, the kind of leaders that they are, the difference that they're making. So I definitely, that I would say is how I define success there. And then I think for myself, it's I want to have fun in my life. I want to look back and, I love, do you follow Jesse Itzler and how you should have these big, I forget what he calls it, but these big, bucket list kind of moments throughout your year. And I try to have a few of those a year to just make sure that I'm actually living life and having fun.
Do you have when you look at, you've done a lot, you've achieved a lot, you're at a good place now, but do you look at, I've never asked it this way before. I'm thinking about it now.
Yeah.
That if 5 years from now or 10 years from now, or I guess you could go to the deathbed, that you would be, there are some things you want to achieve. You'd be, a little disappointed if you hadn't done those between now and then. Or do you feel like, you're good?
Yeah. I think about, I think I've definitely shown up in the way that I wanted to in my relationships. I think on a personal level for me, it's what we talked about earlier. There's some stuff that I haven't tapped into in myself. And I think be wondering what could have happened if I had tapped into that. So I got to figure out a way to explore some of those other, pieces of myself that I haven't yet. But no, I think about that a lot, even when I'm spending time with people. If this was the last time that I would spend with this person, would I be happy with how I spent it? And it just reminds me to be so present. I did this really meaningful thing with my parents where I interviewed them about their life and I recorded it. And I asked them questions about just things that I am curious about. And it was sad to do that because I'm thinking I'm doing this so that one day I can have this recording when they're not here. But I try to live my life in that way, just be really intentional with the time that we have with people. And, you just never know when it could be the last time you have with them.
I realized that as I lost my dad less than a month ago. Yeah. And, it's interesting. Here's a free ad for a company. We did a series for a long time ago, Storyworth. Do you remember that?
Hey, my mom just finished her book and it's such a gift. Oh.
We got my mom's for Christmas.
Oh.
I gave it to her 2 years ago when we did the ad deal and they gave me a free, thing for it. And I did it with my mom and she actually extended it, did it a year. And this year we got it. And I would have never thought of those questions. I can't believe you got one. What a legacy is that?
I know. It's her book is like this. And it's just, all these things about her life that
I found myself in the living room going, guys, listen to what your grandma did. Nana, did. Oh, it's so great. Thanks for sharing that. I do want to ask you first show you talked about how it was not the norm to leave something that was doing great and just to leave it and do something different, especially if it was looked at as kind of a smaller endeavor. But in you talking about you're interested in, and I'm not going to paraphrase you perfectly, but interested in other things that you could do with almost other aspects of yourself. pairing those two together, because I look at that too. And I think, yeah, but if I'm going to do that, I've got to make space for it. So what's going to change? I've got to change my role. And I only understand back to the identity aspect. I only understand myself in this role. So how? Talk to me.
I know. I mean, I think you definitely, okay, I'll put it through this lens. There's one of my favorite books is called Necessary Endings. It's written by Dr. Henry Cloud. And he talks about how everyone has a rose bush and you have these roses, which are the things that you want to spend your time on. And in order for them to bloom, you have to prune the bush as well. And so the only way for your roses to continue to bloom is if you have the courage to, prune the bush and end things. So I always think about, like, if I'm going to start something, something has to end. And what is that thing that's going to end? So right now I'm going through a bit of a evolution in my company where I'm starting to think about, okay, what happens if something happens to me? I'm the person who is teaching our work, and I want our work to live beyond me. I want it to be bigger than me. And so I'm thinking about that now evolution in our business. How do we have others helping ignite our work? And I think when I can figure that out, it will also free up some capacity for me to start to look into other areas of myself and my life. And so, yeah, I do think about, I'm always making sure in my life that I am both starting something and ending something.
That's good. I mean, as I presented, I'm grappling with it.
It's hard.
Even as I had a huge year last year, big athletic feats and achievements. It was a big year. And I realized I don't want to do it. I don't want to grow on that. That was a lot. I actually think I'd like to do more walking and meditating. And on the interest, and we joked about this a minute ago, and you say you don't have a lot of hobbies because that's the last one here. Okay. One though, you said you love writing and you want to do that. I make the assumption, but you tell me that it's there's something you love writing, would you say, but it's in something you want to impart, like you have with this book yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I'm like, okay, what are the things I love to do? I love to go for walks. I love someone on my team was like, I think Legree is your new hobby because I'm going like 5 times a week and I'm obsessed with it. I love writing. I love traveling. I love being with people. But like, are these hobbies? And then I also get a little bit hung up on it because I think some of the things I do for work, I would also say there are things I might do even if I wasn't like expected to do that in my role or paid for it. And I think it's kind of confusing when something that you would consider a hobby is now something you're earning income from. Because now in my mind, it's like, is it still a hobby? But it feels like it's still a hobby. Oh no.
No wrong answers. No wrong answers. It is interesting, having people on the show and ask them this question. And some of them will have these things that they really invest a lot in over here in that. I don't know what the ratio is, Kristen, but there's a lot that are kind of where you are too, going, gosh, I don't know. You're enjoying life. You are having fun, but there is that, interest over here. It does feel like a little bit of a different, kind of like you talked about journaling, and writing with your non-dominant hand, to have something that you're investing in over here. I find that people seem to feel like, gosh, it's back to what you said, it's a new part of me to invest and realize, gosh, I really like, I don't know, woodworking or gardening or dancing, or I've really gotten into it. It has no productive value in and of itself, but it makes me more who I am.
Right. Yeah. I know. There's definitely some things that I would love to do improv. And I think that could be a really cool hobby. I definitely want to be more involved in my local community. And so I have a vision of some things that I will be involved in to help me be, more grounded here. But I think the travel is what's been hard about that. And I am pretty sure I will like not do well at this, but I do want to learn how to garden. And my husband's like, I don't think we should. I think you should just stop now while you're ahead. But I still want to learn. And I think I'm really inspired by my husband because he is an avid learner. Like he's learned how to box. He's learned how to DJ. He's learned how to break dance. He's learned how to play the violin. And he's like somebody that wants to learn something, master that thing, do it, and then he moves on to another hobby. So I have him over here like constantly doing these new things. And I'm like, I want to learn how to do something new. But then sometimes I'm not, sometimes where I get stuck is, wait, do I really want to do this? Or do I just feel like I have to do this so that I can have a hobby, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting when you talk about gardening, Kristen, that I wish I had the quote somewhere. It was a video that somebody shared. It was this guy saying something about that he had taken up painting. And he said, so I told people that. Yeah, it comes up in conversation. Yeah, I've taken up painting. And they often ask, oh, so you're any good?
Yeah.
I said, well, what if I took up walking? And somebody would say, oh, you any good at it? I walk. Well, I love that because it frees us up to just do that thing. And I related it to skiing. So I live out here in the mountains of Colorado. Yeah. I'm just not a great skier. And I go out there and it's just fun. My kids laugh when I wreck, when we're going through the woods and I'm a hack skier. And I just don't care. And it kind of gave me permission to go, I don't have to be good. I live in Colorado. I'm not a great skier. We do ski, but I just enjoy it. So if you want to garden poorly, I support you. I'm here to support you, Kristen. Hey, thank you. Isn't this such a joy? Thanks for the behind the scenes. Thanks for you mentioned vulnerability, and I love your candor in that. And it's what I saw so much testimony to in your book and the reviews on Amazon. And people love just how you're personal and you are vulnerable and you connect with us even through the pages there. But it's been a joy for me to be able to connect with you now for another time. Thank you so much.
Right back at you. I've so enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Well, again, such a gift. That was round 2 with Kristen Hadeed, author of Permission to Screw Up, How I Learned to Lead by Doing Almost Everything Wrong. And again, a gift for us from Kristen. Her renowned program, Human Leadership Program, is she does it 4 times a year. It's $299. She's letting us in free. You can get that link in the show notes. And friends, I always invite you again into our Drive Tribe community to take these discussions further and talk about what is driving us and what is driving others to us, especially talking about influence. Go to kevinmiller.co, click on the community tab. You can connect with me on social media. We're posting a lot of new videos, a lot of little clips that people apparently are getting value from. They're being shared and seen a lot. Find me on any social media at kevinmiller.co. You can always get my book, What Drives You? And audit and work through your own drive. Go to Amazon or wherever you get your books. And friends, thank you for letting me drive with you today. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey. I look forward to meeting you in the Drive Tribe community for ongoing discussions about each episode. You can subscribe to the Drive Drop newsletter for weekly updates. Find it all at kevinmiller.co, along with all our social media and video clips. Until next time, I hope this episode helps you drive further and enjoy the ride.